Moms.
Hi.
Oh, it's one of my favorite days where we get to drop an episode from the Patreon in the regular feed.
Oh, yeah, surprise. Happy whatever day it is.
Fam, this is episode 1 of a series that we just did a little while back called Manifesto of a Serial Killer. This is one of the best documentary series I think we've ever covered.
Yeah, very let the women do the work. It's about the sister of a victim who really, gets this story told.
Yes.
And it's, some of the most vile, horrible stuff we've ever covered, but the story is really unbelievable.
It's the story of 2 serial killers, Charles Ng and Richard Lake, and they are 2 of the most prolific serial killers in American history, and I had never heard of either of them. I never heard of this case at all. The whole thing is Richard Lake, created a video diary of what he was doing and why.
In, this hell cabin, this, nightmare stuff of nightmares. I mean, even the cops, decades later, can't talk about it without crying. It's really intense.
It's a very crazy mystery. The documentary is really well done. There are twists and turns and shocks and surprises all along the way.
Oh, boy.
It is wild. So enjoy episode 1 right here, and we'll say a quick goodbye on the way out.
Yeah.
I do feel a need to explain as to why I would want to imprison and, in fact, enslave a young woman.
This unbelievable story all started with the disappearance of a man named Paul Cosner.
It is probably the most gruesome, violent investigation in the history of our state.
As the investigators were trying to find Paul Cosner, they're starting to find bodies everywhere. They're finding people in trenches. And then they find Leonard Lake's Manifesto.
The video sent chills up my spine.
Leonard Lake and Charles Ng were the most deadly pair of serial killers in California history.
So we get the on-screen text right at the top. It says, in 1985, while searching for a missing person, San Francisco police are led to a remote cabin. They discover 2 videotapes and a serial killer's manifesto.
Now, the first thing, I was like, this music is so over the top, but it also is is really terrifying.
Yes.
It matches matches the terror of what's actually happening here. But at first I'm like, pipe down this documentary. And then I'm like, no, it's valid. It totally works.
It is like horror movie music, though. It's very effective. So we see this guy on tape. This is the killer. This is one of the serial killers.
Yeah, this piece of shit sitting in a lazy boy recliner with his feet up. And I'm like, you're trying to tell me he's 38?
38
I
years
don't
old.
think so.
I know. There's that Archie Bunker was 42 or something. I'm
right?
telling you, there's this thing going around Facebook that I've been seeing where all these Mrs. Roper was 41.
Okay. This is not that.
No.
This is a guy who's when you're such a piece of shit, your body's well,
I know.
I might as well catch up to you.
He is disgusting. He's very hard to look at. But we're okay. So this is my big question. We're in Los Angeles. We meet Todd Howe and his lower third is filmmaker.
Yeah.
I'm assuming he's the filmmaker of this. Is he the director of this thing?
He's our host and narrator.
Well, because I thought that he was doing a Werner Herzog thing where he made himself a talking head in his own movie.
No, I think he... No,
Okay.
I think he maybe brought this to the people who are making it.
Okay,
But I don't think this is his thing.
All right, because he definitely has lines down the road that are scripted that he wants us to feel aren't scripted.
Unless I'm wrong, then I'm wrong.
We could easily
We could just look it up. I have a spaceship in my back pocket, but I'm choosing to not use it.
We'll get to that another time.
As a documentary filmmaker, I'm fascinated by true crime, the mystery and suspense of how they unravel. I came across this murder case 4 years ago, and it had more twists and turns than any work of fiction.
So he goes into his personal collection and he's got the videotape of this fucking serial killer from the cabin. Not only does he have the VHS tape, he's got a VCR to play it on.
I know.
I was whoa.
I guess when you're one of those film guys.
Oh God.
You're not getting rid of your VHS player, just in case. Your
But are
VCR.
you worried you're going to stick it in, it's going to rip the tape and that's going to be that?
Maybe,
You
yeah.
know?
Or if it's this is so out of a horror movie that it feels like that tape actually has evil connected to it.
Are you old enough that you never had a VCR?
No, of course I had a VCR.
You did? Oh, you had a VCR.
Yeah.
I meant young enough.
What?
No, I meant, are you young enough that you never had a VCR?
Oh, no, I'm old enough that I had a VCR. You can say it. No, of course. So this guy, it's Leonard Lake is the guy on the tape, right? He's an evil, heinous person.
On the tape, the guy is saying, anyone who wants to know why I'd want to imprison and enslave young women, you just have to look at me. Like this.
You look like an incel, all right.
Yeah.
Piece of shit.
That's what we're gonna learn about this guy. He was imprisoning and enslaving women in his like remote. It's a horror movie.
It's a horror movie.
Oh my god.
But this story really starts with the disappearance of Paul Cosner.
Yes.
And we're here with Sharon Salito, Paul's sister. She's a hero. She's let the women do the work times a million.
I'm telling you, if we were ever doing that again, I would beg to get her on an episode because she's incredible.
Like, if not for her, we would not be here. Yep. She kept this case going.
Yep.
So it's San Francisco, California in 1984. Paul was a car dealer.
Yeah, kind of. I feel like he was like a car flipper.
He was like putting ads in the San Francisco Chronicle about a car that he had for sale. And we see the ad.
Yeah.
And you know how, I guess, in like want ads, there was like a little section and it was like this Honda and this Honda, but it was called the Honda Hotline. The section of the this like want ad thing. So it's like all of these Hondas that are for sale, and he's selling this orange and gold 1980 Honda Prelude.
All I can think about whenever anybody says the San Francisco Chronicle is Zodiac Killer.
Is Zodiac, yeah.
I'm like, oh, they did other things than run the cipher?
They sure did, before, during, and after. But this is wild that we have the actual ad. It's just so crazy.
Well, we have a lot of that
so
stuff.
Much.
Sharon, the sister, says he got a lot of calls on the car. He thought it was going to be a good, quick deal. We jump to October 31st, 1984. It's Halloween Day. We hear the actual outgoing recording of Paul's like outgoing answering machine message.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Paul. Leave your name and number.
I'm calling in regard to the 1980 Honda Prelude for sale.
We hear the fucking message from the killer calling to inquire about the car.
Yeah, and this guy calls and he wants to come over and take the car for a test drive, and he does exactly that, and he tells Paul he wants to buy the car, and now it's November 2nd.
So it's 2 days later, and Sharon, she talks to her brother Paul in the morning. Paul says, I think I sold the car. She says, to who? And he says, some weird guy.
Some weird guy.
And she says, okay, good, but just be careful.
So, just like, oh God. So the next day, Paul's girlfriend, Marilyn, calls Sharon, the sister. They're all really close. You get the sense that they all, Paul really loves his girlfriend and his girlfriend really loves him, and they all are close with Sharon.
Well,
and
we're going to learn that, Sharon and Paul were very unusually close brother and sister.
Yeah.
And also Marilyn, the girlfriend, and Paul live in the same, little apartment building.
But not the same apartment just yet.
But
just yet. They were going to get there. So Marilyn is the girlfriend, and she and Paul had a date last night. They cooked dinner and they watched a movie. So Marilyn, the girlfriend, tells the sister, Sharon, Paul and I had these plans. We were going to have a date night. We were going to make dinner and watch a movie. And Paul didn't show up. And I haven't heard from him. And this is not like Paul at all.
And Sharon is saying there must be some explanation. Paul would never just not show. He loved his girlfriend.
Yeah. And he's also a responsible guy. He wouldn't do that. And this is where we get Paul's backstory.
Yeah. And Sharon, the sister, is saying that she and Paul grew up in Ohio farm country and they didn't know their father. And Paul was much more than just a big brother. He was her protector and the father she never knew.
Right. Kind of like a father figure as well as a brother. It sounds like they were really all each other had.
And they say he was witty and very loving and kind. And this is where she says how much he loved Marilyn, the girlfriend. And Marilyn didn't know it, but he was about to propose to her.
Yeah. And so the big question is, what the hell happened to Paul?
Yeah.
There are no leads. No one has any idea. This isn't like him, but everyone is calling him. And we have these actual recordings.
And they sound amazing. I'm who? Eric Marcus, who was in the Matthew Shepard documentary, who is my friend. He's the gay historian.
Yeah.
He did all these recordings in the early 80s of these gay civil rights heroes, but he bought the top of the line audio equipment because he knew they'd be valuable recordings in the future.
Yeah.
So they sound amazing, even though they recorded 40 years ago.
Yeah.
That's what these voicemails sound like.
Yeah. And I don't know what the quality was, but maybe Paul was kind of a tech guy too. But I know Sharon took excellent care of these because I know a little bit about Sharon in these first 5 minutes, but she's the type of person who's going to take care of everything to get to the bottom of this case.
Hi, Polly. It's Sharon. Where are you? Call me as soon as you get in, okay? Oh, this is Marilyn. I hope everything's all right. I'm kind of worried. Your sister again. Please call.
And so Marilyn and Paul lived in the same building, but different apartments, right? So
Which I'm what came first? Did they meet because they lived in the same building? Or did they want to be in the same building, but not in the same apartment, so they moved to the same building together?
I think they met because they were neighbors.
Okay.
That's what I'm going with.
Let's go with that.
I know nothing about nothing, but that's...
You know everything about everything. You're a witch and I love you.
If I were to guess... Because, okay, anyway.
Yeah.
So the landlady lets Marilyn and Sharon into Paul's apartment.
Now, I gotta say, this is a very convenient bonus to them living in the same building in a small building. Because, normally that wouldn't happen. And maybe it was like the 80s and maybe it was a different time or whatever, but like you need warrants and the police and all that shit. They know their landlady. I think this is very good.
And I think Sharon's going to get shit done. Okay?
That's true.
And Marilyn, I'm sure, knew the landlady and they were a couple, and what are you going to do? Who's going to say no? Like if
Sharon, not me.
Or a landlady being like, I haven't heard from my boyfriend in 24 hours and this is fucking weird. You let them in.
100%.
Right?
Yes.
Would I be wrong to let them in?
It could be a crime scene. That's why you wouldn't let them in. But like,
I guess.
I said that in a really snippy way. I didn't mean to. Like, it could be a crime scene, Jillian.
Well, it could be. I didn't think about that. I'm all emotional over here. So I did not think about the rational
emotional woman friend. Okay.
I know, there I am. Look at my small arms. So they're in the apartment, right? And Sharon, the sister's like, all right, it's very weird because it's very neat. And she's like, I don't like it.
She focuses on the vacuuming. She's like, he didn't vacuum like that. I didn't vacuum like that. It was like somebody was trying to cover something up.
Right.
We see photos because Sharon smartly is taking pictures and we have them to this day.
Yep.
We looked in the hall closet where Paul kept his guns and we couldn't find the .38 caliber revolver or his .22 Derringer. The ammo was there, but the guns were gone.
Now, none of those words make any difference to me, but I was like, Sharon looks like a woman who knows her way around a gun rack.
They grew up in Ohio?
Like farm country Ohio, yeah.
A gun rack, like Wayne's World. Gun rack.
What is that?
When Wayne's girlfriend, he keeps breaking up with his girlfriend, but Stacy, and she's just like not dealing with the breakup. She's just like not going to do it. So she gets him a gun rack for his anniversary, and he's like, a gun rack? I don't even know a gun, let alone many guns that would necessitate an entire rack. What am I going to do with a gun rack? And she goes, you don't like it? Fine. If you're not careful, Wayne, you're going to lose me. And he's like, it's Lara Flynn Boyle.
I was going to say, it's Lara Flynn Boyle. I love her.
He's like, I already lost you. We broke up. You mental? But whenever I hear gun rack, I'm right in Wayne's World. I'm right in Chicago.
God. Well, anyway, the ammo was there, but the guns were gone.
And Paul's car is also missing.
Yeah, and that's where Sharon is like connecting the dots. She's like, wait, the car that he was selling is gone. The guns are gone. He said he sold the car to some weird guy. Like, this all has to be connected.
Right. So Sharon calls the cops, and they are immediately fucking horrible to her.
I mean, it's really awful. She's told you can't report somebody missing for 24 hours. You got to come and do it in person. And she goes down there.
And she's like, okay, fine, whatever. Like, no compassion, no anything, no warmth.
I mean, the police say, like, how old is your brother? And she says 39. And I'm not going to say what they say, but they imply that he's, like, out drunk seeing a sex worker, and they're not going to look for him. They say, we don't look for anybody who's over the age of 6.
And Sharon is coming in. Remember, Sharon is coming in to report, like, she's going through something terrible.
Yes.
And this is how the cops treat her. And she goes, yeah, well, it's not my bike. It's my brother. Like, he's a human person. What?
Because the cop is trying to talk her out of filing a missing persons report. She's like, I want to file a missing. And he's like, well, if you must.
We're talking about a police department that was dealing with 500 missing persons cases per month. They were dealing with the drug issues, the gang issues, and they just don't have the manpower and the people power in order to investigate all those cases.
500 missing persons cases per month.
Unbelievable.
What
is this, 1980?
Yes. That is fucking...
84.
Whatever year it is. Like 500 missing people a month. What the hell is going on, San Francisco?
So instead of dealing with it, they're just trying to deter Sharon from reporting her missing brother.
We got to do better. I mean, we got to
obviously.
We got to hire 1 billion people to find all these
I hate
people.
that guy.
What
Whoever
is going
spoke
on?
to her like that. Horrible. So Sharon's like, okay, you have no idea who you're dealing with. I'm Sharon, and I'm going to take matters into my own hands. So she does. She starts calling around. She's going to his apartment every single day. She's collecting what she needs. She's taking the photos. I mean, he is missing.
She also, there's a bunch of messages on the machine for people who were interested in the car. She calls each one of them back because these are the people. It's got to be one of these people.
Exactly.
Right? So she calls them all back to see if they made an appointment, and none of them have.
And now Paul's been missing for 7 days, and Sharon once again goes over to his house, and she sees a new message on his answering machine.
Yeah, this is crazy.
We hear the actual message.
Yeah.
Paul is going to be dead.
And that was the entire message.
Yeah.
And Sharon's like, I could barely breathe.
She collapses because, she's saying it wasn't a demand. It wasn't like, he's going to be dead unless you give me $1 million, which Sharon could have raised.
Right. Right. But it was just like, Paul's going to be dead. What? And that is so chilling. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. No. And there's, that's the feeling.
I immediately go to oh my God, is he alive right now? Is he suffering? Is 100%. He hungry? Is he cold?
What? Yeah. So Sharon immedially calls the cops again. And she calls the missing persons division. And she's like, now they have to take this case more seriously, right?
Well, it's assigned to San Francisco's missing persons inspectors, Irene Brunn and Tom Eisenman. These are the grumpiest looking headshots. Like, for some reason, these two got like their headshots taken, and we see them kind of throughout because I'm assuming they're both dead now.
Yeah, I don't know. We don't meet Irene, but there's one photo of her.
Irene.
There's one photo of her, and it looks like a mugshot.
It looks like
and I'm sure it was her ID. Those ID photos are never good.
And like, why are you calling me away to get my picture taken? I just want to look for the missing people. Like,
right.
Irene wants, and yes, I know it's come on, Eileen. I know that. But Irene just wants to do the work. She does not care about getting her picture taken, but it shows.
It's just
the same thing with the other guy, Tom. Like, it's not any
the only
better.
photos they have.
Yes.
And and then it makes me think like, oh no, do we hate them? No, why is there only one photo? Like, why aren't they here?
I'm assuming that like it was 1984. It's now 2023. I can't do that math, but it's a lot of years later.
It's a lot of years later.
Yeah.
So these two, they search the apartment. They don't find anything, and the case stalls yet again. And Sharon will not be stopped. Someone describes her as a one-woman police agency.
I'm just saying, like, why are we saying there's no leads? Like, this guy was selling a car. He said he sold it to a weird guy. There's a million messages on the answer. Like, what do you say? Irene, of course there's leads.
And also someone, like, it's still a scary thing. Paul is going to be dead.
Yes.
Like,
I'm like, just call every person back on the answering machine and you'll find the guy. Why am I solving this crime?
I don't know.
You know what I mean?
Really could have used you in 1984.
In 1984, I was 3.
So Sharon, again, becomes a one-woman police agency. She's putting up flyers everywhere. She's offering a $10,000 reward.
She's going to hospitals and morgues.
At the beginning, I was going in 100 different directions, thinking I was going to get a lead. I was going to get some information. I had been calling the TV stations trying to get somebody to do a story about Paul's disappearance.
The San Francisco police are asking for help tonight in their search for a man who placed a newspaper advertisement to sell his 1980 Honda.
She's going on multiple stations talking about Paul. She's really doing everything.
It's amazing to see like her back then, because like we see her now. She's like a tough lady now, but like to see what she looked like when she was like in her 20s or whatever.
And just being told no, she's like, oh, fuck that. Like, I don't think so.
She says there is no giving up. Paul was my life.
Of course. Like,
and because she says like months are going by and people in her life are saying like, you got to move on. You got to give up. You got to
move on.
And I'm like, who are these monsters that are saying like, forget about your brother who's only been missing 3 months?
Yeah, like, so sorry, there's not a lot of information. Like, let's just move
on.
What is moving on?
She thinks he's like in a fucking basement somewhere.
Like, how do you just stop looking? How do you go to sleep at night? How do you wake up in the morning? How do you just like put this out of your head? That's impossible.
The Fred Murray of it all. He's like searching the woods every day until he fucking dies.
It's impossible to just move on.
Yeah.
Even if they were trying to just tell her that maybe it was like unhealthy for her to do this, but to assume that she could just like move on from this and not just like learn to live with it and then navigate the world with this horrible loss in her life.
And I'm like, is it her friends telling her that? Like, Sharon,
I doubt it.
You're friends with us now, Sharon.
Yeah.
You don't need those people.
I doubt it. But suddenly, after months and months and months of no movement and Sharon going on the news and doing all this stuff, there's a new lead. And this is where we learn about the Dubs family.
Yeah, so the Dubs family disappeared 3 months before Paul vanished. It's Harvey and Deborah are the parents. They were last seen on the evening of July 26th. The next day, the couple, Harvey and Deborah, and their 18-month-old baby vanished.
All 3 of them. 3 months before Paul.
And everyone is just saying, like, entire families don't go missing. That is not a thing.
I knew there had to be a connection, so I called Deborah Dubs' father. He told me that somebody had answered the ad, stolen the equipment, and the whole family had disappeared. And I said, well, don't you think that it has to be tied in together? And he said, yes, it surely did.
Burying the lead here, but like Harvey was always placing ads in the Chronicle.
Yes.
Always. Like he was renting out video equipment. So Sharon's like, the Chronicle ads? Are you kidding? There's got to be a connection.
All I can see is the cipher, the Zodiac cipher.
I know, right?
We got to make room for the other ads.
Like, are you kidding? So that's when she was like, wait, this guy was also putting ads and doing business in the Chronicle? Like, no way. This has to be a connection. Then yes, the dad confirms that.
Yeah, and we learned, so July 25th, 1984 is the day the Dubs family disappears. And we learned from a friend that Deborah was on the phone with a friend of hers named Karen.
Yeah.
And she was talking about how there's like a weird guy that they're going to meet that night who wants to rent some of the equipment. And while she's on the phone with Karen, the doorbell rings and she's like, oh, that must be him. And then no one ever sees them again. Now, remember how Sharon said that Paul described the guy who bought the car as weird?
Yeah, I'm going to like sell this car to this weird guy and then I'm going to be back for my date. And now Deborah is telling her friend, yeah, we're going to meet some weirdo who's renting the equipment and I'll talk to you later.
Yeah. It's weird. Like, what is he doing to be presenting as so weird to everybody?
Right. And with the Chronicle, like there's something's here. So the best friend, Karen, the best friend's husband goes over the house to check on the Dubs family.
Yeah.
And because no one could get a hold of the family.
Right.
And Karen's like, I was just on the phone with her, but she said she was going to meet this guy. And then the doorbell rang.
And it was weird.
Can you please go over and check it out?
Send the husband. Do not go yourself, Karen. Send your husband.
So here's what the husband finds.
Yeah.
There's a key in the door, which is also suspicious.
Yep.
So he lets himself in. The house has been totally looted. He calls 911 right away, and the cops show up. And who shows up?
Irene.
The same
Come
woman.
on, Irene.
The same woman who's on Paul's case, the one who has one photo and it looks like a mugshot. But she's a cop.
Poor Irene.
I know.
Like, probably the only lady in that part of the fort. Like, it was not, her life was not easy.
No.
Irene, I'm not giving you shit.
I'm
I think
telling
you worked
no
hard on
one
this.
looks good in your ID.
No. Oh, my
Nobody.
God. Well, take a look at my license. Are you
Like, that's
kidding?
what I mean.
Oh, my God.
Nobody looks good in those photos.
I feel like there's been one good picture of me in my entire life.
Which one is it?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I'm just assuming. I'm hoping there was one.
Of course.
I can't think of what it is, but I'm hoping.
God.
Inspector Irene Brunn is called to come into the house. As soon as she gets in there, she starts to recognize something is wrong here. Things are not the way they're supposed to be. There's dirty dishes in the sink, there's dirty diapers, there's missing items, videotapes, video equipment. She already starts to suspect foul play is involved with this particular disappearance.
There are missing items like video cameras and videotapes. You have to remember, in 1984, that shit was rare and expensive.
And enormous. Like, we have our phones now, but video equipment in 1984 was cumbersome and huge and not convenient.
No, I remember when JFK, the JFK assassination, and then Jack Ruby got shot in that underground parking garage.
Yeah.
And you see the news cameras there, live filming it. And they're so big that you have to stand. They're on wheels.
They're on wheels.
That's what I'm imagining this video equipment is like.
You said that as if you were there.
I know. In my brain, I was
tone,
there.
I was like, no.
Jack Ruby killed Lee Harvey Oswald. He walks right up to him and shoots him. And I could see it.
And I had to scoot out of the way from this enormous camera that was on wheels.
Me and the babushka lady were like, we got to go see this. I love my babush.
You love her.
But Irene, who back at the scene, she inventories everything in the house that's missing and somehow was able to get the serial numbers for the missing equipment, which is important to remember. And I'm like, how, from the user manual or something?
There's always a sticker underneath something.
But if it's missing, wouldn't the sticker be on the thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Then I don't know. Then I can't help you.
How'd you get the serial numbers? We don't know.
Or maybe if there's a stand and the guy took the camera but left the stand, or maybe they can try to connect something in some way.
I don't even know why we feel like we need to know how she did it. We just need to know that she did do it.
Okay, great. Good for you.
Come on, Irene.
So now we meet.
I just like it because it makes you laugh.
You
it's really
love that song.
Come on, Irene.
Do you know the name of that band?
The Indigo Girls?
No, Dexy's Midnight Runners.
Stop it.
But I think...
How do you know everything?
It's a weird pop culture thing. My brain is very, very weird.
You're
but
a
who
witch.
doesn't know Come On Eileen?
I know.
But I think that's drugs. They're talking Dexy's Midnight Runners, popping Dexy's on
Wait,
that.
that's a throwback to Black Beauties and Scotch.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
There you go.
Okay, great.
Always comes back. So we meet Barbara Speaker, and
Yeah.
she's a friend and neighbor of the Dubs family, and she has super, super valuable information.
Yes.
I heard the top lock and my neighbor's door locking. The very next day, after the Dubs were reported missing, and then I heard footsteps coming down the stairs. And I leaned over and I looked, and there was this Asian man in his mid-20s, I'd say, and another man carrying something that seemed to be fairly heavy.
And she runs out to talk to them because an entire family's missing.
Yeah,
so she thinks...
and these people are taking their stuff.
Right. So she's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So she runs out to talk to them.
Deborah Speaker has never cursed a day in her life, Jillian.
Barbara, yeah. But she's just well, she did today because she's like, maybe I can get to the bottom. Who the fuck is upstairs?
I mean, she shouts at them. She's like, hey, do you guys know the Dubs?
Have you seen my friends, the Dubs family? What's going on?
And why are you taking all their shit?
And the guys don't answer. But what they do is they get into the Dubs family car and drive off. And Barbara's like, not on my watch.
Not on my these guys are not being smooth about this at all.
No.
They're just not wearing nylon stockings over their faces.
And just because you didn't say a word to Barbara, she knows something's up.
Totally.
Please. So the Dubs family has been missing for 2 days.
Yeah.
And there's activity on their bank card.
I mean, these people are so stupid. They're using it to take cash out of an ATM, and then they use it at the Benihana near the airport.
Benihana, have some class.
They're using Deb's fucking credit card at Benihana. What is wrong with you people?
But they're using the bank card. They're using the ATM card. They're taking taking money out of their Wells Fargo account. And we see photos from the ATM cameras, not bad for 1984.
I got to agree.
They're like much better than actually some recent photos we've seen.
Well, 100%. But do you think that it was so early on in credit cards that you didn't know that you could get tracked that quickly?
And not just their credit cards, but every way they could use or take money from this family, they did. Credit card, ATM, and just their bank account.
The thing that that was just so dark and sad to me is that in order for them to know how to get cash from the ATM, like they had to get them to tell them their PIN numbers.
Oh, fuck.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's terrible. But anyway, the people at the Benihana was an Asian man, a Caucasian man, and a Caucasian woman.
Right. So
at Benihana, like, oh my God.
Like,
they probably just killed these people and their baby.
Yeah.
And now they're celebrating at Benihana.
Like, of all places to celebrate.
My
just
God.
the worst.
I know.
I'm sorry.
Coming on for Benihana.
Is it bad?
Wow.
I don't know.
Wow.
It's just like, is there not a Chili's?
A Houlihan's?
Whatever.
Bennigan's?
Whatever.
I don't know.
Benihana. Salad bar.
Oh my God.
25. I don't know.
Of all the places to sell. Oh my
just
God.
Like,
oh God.
So it's August 27th, 1984, and the Dubs family has been missing for a month.
Yeah.
And this is when their car is found.
I'm sorry, they're what?
Their car?
They actually refer to it as the Dubs family automobile.
Oh, no.
I thought of you.
Patty Peterson.
You didn't even write it down.
No, I just said car.
The Dubs family automobile is located.
Yeah, in long-term parking, and that's never good.
No.
I've explained to you how they use this in The Sopranos.
Yes.
But it's just never good when someone who's missing and their car's in long-term parking.
You explained it to me when we were at the airport, and I was driving us to the airport, and we were driving by long-term parking looking for the parking spot. I'm like, are we supposed to go to long-term parking?
You're
like,
no! Never! So now remember, though, all of this is happening 3 months before Paul Cosner even goes missing, right? So we have all of this information. Now we're jumping to November 14th, 1985, which is 2 weeks after Paul's disappearance. And his sister, Sharon, who just learned about the Dubs family, she hears about this long-term parking thing.
I went to the airport parking lot just to see if Paul's car was parked there, too. But it wasn't there. And I did the same thing in San Jose and the same thing in Oakland.
And she also, this is so fucking badass, she learns that cops stop looking for cars, stolen cars, after 28 days.
She learns about the hot sheet.
Right.
So, like, cops got a hot sheet looking for, like, it's a list of cars that they're looking for because they were connected to a robbery or they were stolen. Yeah.
And so she just starts reporting Paul's car missing every 28 days.
Because that's when it gets dropped off the sheet.
So that it'll always be on the sheet
so
forever.
Smart.
And it's like,
God.
I just picture her with, like, a little date book or just, like, call, like, report. And, like, it is so fucking morbid and sad, but it's just, like, this is what she's doing. She is on top of it.
Yes.
You know? So, like, for someone to be like, you know, Sharon, you should really start to move on, or there's not a lot of information here. No, yes, there is.
Yeah.
There's plenty of information, and Sharon's going to get to the bottom of it.
Totally.
So Paul's missing for 7 months, to the day.
To the day.
And something major happens.
June 2nd, 1985. This is a little confusing.
It's a little confusing.
You're right over there. I think we can do it. I think we got it. We learn an event occurs that blows this case wide open. So we meet Daniel Wright. He's a police officer. He gets called out to a lumber. Now, we're about to deal with a lot of locations and items that I barely know what they are.
Yeah.
One of them is a lumber yard, which is a place where they sell wood, I think.
Yes.
He gets called out to a lumber yard where he's told an Asian male has stolen a vice, which is like a vice grip, I think.
Yeah, it's this thing. It's a thing that holds something else.
She's showing me pictures of it.
I Googled it. But you've seen it if you ever had like a wood shop class.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a tool that holds things in place while they're being worked on.
Right, totally.
But I Googled it because I needed the imagery. Now, it's spelled with an S. A vice is like drinking.
It is?
Yeah.
V-I-S-E?
Yeah.
Oh, I did not spell it correctly.
And so vice is like smoking or drinking or sex or whatever.
So, like, this cop is getting called out there because he's told that this Asian man has stolen this vice. And now, the Asian man has run off. So by the time the cop gets out there, the Asian man is gone.
Yeah, so this guy walked into the hardware store, stole the vice, put it in a car, and then walked away from the car.
Yes.
So the cops are like, we're going to go search that car.
I look over at the car, the trunk's open, I see the vice. I start to move things around. As I do so, I find a .22 Ruger automatic. And with the gun is a silencer. It was the first time I ever seen a silencer. This is like, wow, this is the real deal.
And I want to say everybody is appropriately fucking freaked out about the silencer.
Right. Now, as they find the silencer, some other guy, he's like, no, let me explain. He comes running and he's like, officers, I know this looks bad.
Leave it to the big white guy to come out and explain to everybody what's going on here.
Mansplain the fuck out of it. So he's like, no, I know this looks horrible.
I know this looks weird.
It actually looks totally fine. Once you know what happens, it's going to make super all this sense to you.
Yeah.
So he's like, let me explain. My friend thought I paid for the vice.
Yeah.
So he took it to the car before I actually paid for it. So it was like a big misunderstanding, but I totally paid for it.
But he did run off. I can't explain that. Don't know where he is, where he went.
And then he put it in the back of my car and left the trunk open, and there's that silencer there. Don't even look at the silencer. Let's be silent about the silencer. But total misunderstanding. I paid for it. He thought I didn't. He ran out and then bailed, and now my friend's not here, but nothing to see here, fellas.
Nothing to see here at all.
Bunch of good old boys in a parking lot, am I right?
With a silencer and a gun, right?
Come on, like the good old days, right? Anyway.
But the thing that we have to tell you that, thank God for this. In California, a gun with a silencer is illegal under any circumstances.
Thank God.
So, this gun, they're fucked. This silencer fucked them all.
So the cops are like, cool story, bro. Hey, what's your name?
Yeah.
And the guy says, oh, my name is Robin Scott Stapley.
Yes.
And then they check his ID. And so they handcuff him because they're like, you got the silencer, you have this weird vice story, and we don't know if you have any more weapons, so we're handcuffing you.
On you, exactly. So they run the license plate, and the car comes back to a man named Lonnie Bond. So they say to the guy, hey, bro, whose car is this? And he says, oh, it belongs to my neighbor, Lonnie Bond. So the cops are like, all right, that checks out. This car didn't come back that it's connected to any robbery or was stolen.
Because they're like, wait, where's Lonnie now?
Right.
And the guy's like, oh, he's up in the hills. And the cops are like, awesome,
okay,
dude.
fine,
You have
great.
the best stories.
Oh my God. We're going to keep you in those handcuffs for a little while longer, but you got great stories.
Just the best explanations, So the cop explains, and the cop's like, well, what was I supposed to do though? The name wasn't related to a missing person. It all sounded legit. And I'm like, but what about the silencer?
Yeah.
What about the illegal silencer?
Well, they run the serial number on the gun, and it comes back to Robert Scott Stapley. And so it is the guy who just said he is Robert Scott Stapley. This is his gun. It's an illegal gun. They arrest him.
And the cops are like, well, now we got a problem.
Now we gotcha.
So they arrest this guy, and they take him down to the station to question him.
In the meantime, Officer Wright stayed with the car.
I ran the VIN, and the car came back to a missing person by the name of Paul Cosner.
So this is so interesting because Sharon just told us about the hot sheet.
Yes.
That gets updated every 28 days.
Oh my God, right.
So they also could have just looked to see if this car matches one of the ones that were stolen. I mean, the VIN number works too.
Yeah.
But the car that this guy was driving was a fucking missing car.
Right.
And Sharon made sure that they knew that.
Oh my God. I mean, let the women do the fucking work.
So hopefully they would have actually looked and been like, this guy's suspicious and he's not Lonnie, but he's driving Lonnie's car and he has a silencer.
Also, that guy ran away with the vice and he's got a silencer. Oh my God. Yeah.
Let's check the hot sheet.
Yep.
They didn't do that for whatever reason, or even if they, but still the point is Sharon is thinking 10 steps ahead.
She's amazing. So they call Sharon and they say Sharon, girl, sit down. We found Paul's car.
Right.
She collapses and she's like, is Paul in the car? Is he with the car? Oh my God. And they're like, no, we don't know where Paul is. And she collapses and she just wants answers. So now we're down at the police station with this guy from the lumberyard, this Robin Stapley guy or whatever. We learn his real name is Leonard Lake.
Yeah.
Right. And he says he's a fugitive. A background check on him shows that he was a former Marine who'd been arrested by the FBI on 17 counts of felony weapons charges.
Yep.
This is a bad dude.
Yep.
This is why he's got the gun with a silencer. He skipped bail on those charges, and he's been a fugitive ever since.
And he has a partner. His partner is Charles Ng. He stole weapons from an armory.
He's the Asian guy that we've seen a couple of times now. The guy with the vice and the one that the upstairs neighbor saw leaving the house.
This Asian and white guy, it's all the same Asian and white guy.
Exactly.
So Charles Ng served 3 years in prison for stealing these weapons. And Charles Ng is missing because remember, he stole the vice, dropped it in the backseat of the car or whatever, and bailed.
And so they, now that we know this guy's name is Lake, they ask him, where can we find Mr. Ng? And Lake says, oh, he's headed to the home of my ex-wife.
Yeah.
Her name is, how do you say her name?
Clara Lynn.
That's
very annoying. Pick an L and go with it, right? Clara Lynn. Unless you're Clara Lynn and you're listening, you're great, but we don't. This Clara Lynn, I have notes. Clara Lynn. It just feels like I'm saying it wrong.
It does sound like you're trying to say Carolyn, but you're doing it wrong.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Or Clara.
Clara Lynn.
Clara Lynn. I can't say the last name either. So Lake says that this guy Ng is going to my ex-wife's house. Her name is Clara Lynn. She lives in South San Francisco.
Right.
At one point, Leonard Lake asked for a pen and paper. I believe the officers thought he might provide additional information regarding Paul Cosner, and they left him with the pen and paper and stepped out of the room.
So then Gary Hopper gets down there. He's a detective.
Yeah.
And he's called down there to deal with all this.
Yes.
And when he gets into this interview room, this Leonard Lake guy is on the floor having convulsions.
I mean, can I just say, like, why did they leave him alone? Like, he's like, they know that he like hopped bail on 17 charges. They give him a pen and paper and they walk out of the room.
Well,
what?
I mean, I guess they probably locked the door.
Well,
you know,
like,
they probably.
I mean, like, they don't want him to kill himself, which he easily could do, like, with what he had on him.
I have some news for you. So he's having these convulsions. They have no idea what's going on. So they have to, like, rush him to the ICU. He's in critical condition.
And this doesn't make sense to anybody because everybody's like, oh, we just arrested this guy with the car and that missing guy, Paul. And everyone's like, great. When do we get to interview him? They're like, oh, no, like he's on like life support.
Right.
Nobody can understand what happened. How did this happen?
So they start searching him, right? And they find a note. And the note says, Dear Lynn, I love you. I forgive you. Freedom is better than all else. Tell Fern I'm sorry. Mom, Patty, and all. I'm sorry for the trouble. Love, Leonard.
Yeah.
So what we learn is that Leonard Lake popped a cyanide pill that he was carrying. I'm like, who carries that around?
I mean,
he knows this day. He knew this day was coming.
Because we've been seeing throughout this episode on like his video confession saying like this plan to like have these slaves is all going to be great as long as they don't get caught. So he's got this like cyanide pill on him just in case he ever does get caught. Today's the day.
Yeah. Can I tell you something that was kind of like, whoa, I Googled cyanide pills because I didn't know how to do that. I literally Googled, and I'll show you the screenshot, where to get a cyanide pill. And Google immediately gave me resources for help.
That happens when you like in our line of work, you Google things sometimes and like it directs you to like suicide prevention hotlines.
Call 988 for a suicide and crisis helpline. But I was like, oh, Google, that is so nice. I just want to know where one gets it.
I'm a podcaster.
Because I'm trying to throw shade at this horrible guy. But I still don't know where you get a cyanide pill.
Yeah, it's probably better. We shouldn't tell people.
I should not know. No, I don't want to tell anyone. But I was just kind of like, oh, wow. Okay, great. Anyway.
So it cuts back to Sister Sharon, and she's like,
Lieutenant Al Sonoda from San Francisco PD called and told me one of the guys got away and the other one, they've taken him to the hospital. What do you mean? What do you mean? What about Paul? And he said, we don't know anything yet.
But we know it's Paul's car. So they send the car over to the lab or whatever to see what they can get from that. And blood was present.
I mean, they say blood spatter is everywhere and like a bullet hole in the visor over the passenger seat of the car. They're saying it's very clear that somebody shot from the back seat a person in the passenger seat in the front.
Because there's also a bullet hole in the passenger door, right? But they still don't know what's going on. Like, was it Paul who was killed? Who did the killing? Where is Paul? Like, they don't really, they know a little bit more, but we still need a lot more information.
I'm like, is this like pre-DNA? Is there no blood we can get anywhere and run at least a blood test?
So, but also in the car, they found like an electrical bill, like a utility bill for a house in a super, super, super remote area up in Northern California.
Yeah.
And the bill was addressed to
who?
Clara Lynn.
What's her name?
Clara Lynn Ballas. The cyanide pill guy, his ex-wife.
His ex-wife.
So they think the Lynn from the letter is Clara Lynn.
Yes.
Too many L's.
Hey, guess who's called back in? Irene, come on, Irene.
Come on, Irene. And Tom.
Irene and Tom. They're called in. They go up to Clara Lynn's house.
And remember, Irene had the Dubs family case, too, the family who went missing. So she's working these two cases.
Yeah, Irene's the one who took the serial numbers from like the missing equipment, right? So they go up to Clara Lynn's house to interview her. And they're talking to Clara Lynn, and they're like, girl, look, the guy Leonard Lake, your ex-husband, said that his companion, Charles Ng, was coming to see you. Like, did you make contact with him? She denies seeing him or hearing from him.
She's a steel trap. She doesn't know anything. This is a total dead end having this conversation.
Right.
Investigators told Clara Lynn that inside Paul's car, they found a utility bill with her name on it from a property in Wilseyville, California. Clara Lynn confirmed that she did have a cabin in Wilseyville, where Leonard Lake and Charles Ng would stay from time to time. But she claimed she had never heard of Paul Cosner and had no idea why Leonard Lake would have been driving his car.
And she and Leonard Lake, the cyanide pill guy, they're divorced, but they were still really close, yet she also didn't know anything about him at the same time. It's like, which is it, Clara Lynn? Pick a lane.
Pick an L.
Because I don't, first of all, pick an L, then pick a lane, also with an L, too many L's.
But she's like very helpful all of a sudden.
Then she's like, you know what, I'll take you to the cabin.
You'll never find it on your own. Let me just take you up there.
Now, I'm sure that's true because this is the stuff of nightmares, but I also think she wanted to be there when they searched the place.
For sure.
So.
Well, like, how much does she know? Do you know?
She knows. I don't know how she couldn't know.
Yeah.
So it's June 4th, 1985. Up we go. We're all going to search the cabin.
I always think about these, like, that's like a 5-hour drive at least.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, what is Clara Lynn and Irene talking about in the car?
Not much.
You know what I mean?
I think it's a lot of silence.
Yeah.
And a lot, like a station that still plays stuff from the 70s on the radio.
Yeah. More than a feeling.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
She's like, come on, Eileen. And Irene's rolling her eyes.
She's like,
It's Irene, not Eileen.
I know,
oh
and
my
everyone's
God.
singing it to me.
Do you know that band name is about drugs?
I don't know. Did that song come out yet? It's 1985?
Oh, man, who knows?
Who cares? So let's go to the cabin. We get there. There's a gate. And then like a really, really long dirt road. It's like a really long driveway that's like 300 yards.
Yeah.
Then you go up another hill. And then there's a cabin on the left side. And then there's what they're calling a cement workshop on the right.
And it really looks like a building made out of cinder blocks.
Yes.
Now, what's wild is that we see pictures from back then. We see the cabin today. That cinder block thing is gone.
Yeah.
It is not there.
No, it's not there anymore.
Yeah.
So Clara Lynn is like, oh, that's a fallout shelter because Leonard Lake, the cyanide guy, he's a survivalist and he was traumatized in the Vietnam War. And so now he's like waiting for doomsday.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, no, that's a kill room.
That's 1
That's
million
a
percent
fucking
a kill room. And
Like,
it's
shut up, Clara Lynn.
Shut up, Clara Lynn.
Shut up.
Shut up.
Because like you could tell, the cinder block, the walls are real thick and
Yeah.
it's just like, I don't like it.
And it's so close to the house. It also looks very shoddily made. It does not look like it would withstand the apocalypse.
No.
You know? But Clara Lynn gives them permission to look around the cabin.
When we entered the cabin, on the wall, Inspector Eisman noticed that there was a rack that contained TV and audio-visual equipment, VCR. And he said, hey, this looks like the stuff that San Francisco PD is looking for the Dubs case.
Irene, the badass woman of it all, takes down the serial numbers, calls it in to see if it matches the serial numbers that she got from the equipment from the house. It's a match.
It's a match.
It's the Dubs' equipment. Like, oh my God.
So now the cops are looking for Paul Cosner because we're here because of Paul Cosner's car.
Yes.
Right? So we're looking for Paul Cosner and or Charles Ng to find out this guy's partner in crime, literally. And now the Dubs family is involved. And the cops were not expecting this at all.
Yeah.
But like we were and Sharon was probably.
Yeah. And suddenly they're looking around and they're like, this is like a fucking murder cabin. They see blood on the ceiling. They see bullet holes in the floor. And then like Irene tells Clara Lynn, we're getting a search warrant for this property. And like Clara Lynn becomes irate and insists on leaving.
Because they not just the cabin, but like the nightmare room.
Yeah.
Like the cinder block
fallout
nightmare
shelter
room.
thing. Yeah.
So yeah, the structure was like made out of cinder block, but they go in and they find this is like the nightmare
And let me just say the cop, so the next day they come back with the search warrant. They can go anywhere they want. And they, like, as they're opening the door to this cinder block fallout shelter, the fucking cop is like, I was too scared to go in there.
Yeah.
Like, you can feel the evil coming out, even
100%.
from the pit. Watching the video of the picture, I can feel the evil coming out
absolutely.
of this place.
Yeah. And like they say, it feels very small when you're inside it because the cinder block was so thick.
But also they're saying when you open the door, like the interior space is much smaller than the footprint of the building. They're like, there's fucking hidden rooms here.
And there is.
And there is.
There are. So they find like this panel which leads to a door. And then they open that door and then there's like another hidden space.
Yeah.
And that's even more cops are like, I'm out. I'm out.
Yes,
like, take my fucking pension. It's not worth this.
No,
like, I'm
oh
not
my
doing
God.
this. Are you kidding me? So
this is the kind of shit you don't recover from.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
Like you see this and you never.
Like the air is different in there. You know what I mean? It's like
Uh-huh.
you can like feel how evil it is.
We realized that there was a secondary room in there, followed by a living area. The living area had a sleeping bag, survival magazines and books, and some miscellaneous stored food. The confined area had a separate door locked from the outside.
This hidden room in the back, it's a cell.
It's a cell.
That you put somebody in, there's no windows, there's no one can hear you scream, and you lock it from the outside.
And in this cell, there's like a list of rules on the wall.
Did you slow it down and read this thing?
Yeah, I wrote down a bunch
There's
of
a
them.
list of rules for the prisoner in the cell.
I must always be ready to serve my master. I must be
Ugh.
cleaned, brushed, and made up with my cell neat. Like
Oh
he's
my
calling it a cell.
God.
Don't speak unless spoken to. Unless in bed, I will not make eye contact. I'll always be looking down. I'm obedient. Never show my distress. I must always be quiet. Like just absolutely vile, subservient shit. But also, the cell was being recorded.
Yes, there's
That's
a camera
why
in there.
they had that video equipment.
Exactly.
So they were filming at all times.
And on the outside of the room, there's a board with 21 photos of women. Some of them are naked. Some of them are like barely dressed. And they're saying like, when were these photos taken? Who are these women?
Right.
And where are they
and
now?
where are they? Like,
Yeah.
it just gets worse and worse and
Yeah.
worse because then they're searching the rest of the property and they find a trench. like they dug a trench. Like the people living there dug a fucking trench, and because there was like a chair sticking out of it, and they're like, "What is over here?"
It's wild because we see a map, right? We see like a map with the actual cabin where they live, and then we see like where the trench is behind the house. And at first they make it sound like it's like a garbage pit, like they're like throwing away household items there
because it's like a mess, right? There's like household goods. They say papers, magazines, like a whole car windshield.
Yes,
they're like, "What?"
Yeah,
lots of stuff in the trench, but then they find a human skull in the trench.
A human skull, but then we see all these unbelievably unnecessary photos of actual human remains.
Yeah, no.
Like, it is, I don't know why they would show it. It's mostly because it's disrespectful to the dead.
Yeah. And because we don't know, we just heard that there's like these 21 photos of young women, and we still don't know where Paul is. We don't know where the Dubs family is.
Right.
And it ends with this sort of like bum, bum, bum.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, there's this skull, and then all these horrible things. And so it just kind of leaves you reeling of like, where are we going with this? Because these last 5 minutes, it got worse every second. Every time there was like a new information, it was just like, I don't know if I needed this episode to end immediately.
I know, me too.
I needed it to end. Too much.
Oh my God, fam. All right. Thank you for checking out episode 1 of Manifesto of a Serial Killer. All 3 episodes are available right now and ad-free on the Patreon at the $5 level.
Yep.
This story it's a true
really
wild mystery. I don't know how I've never heard of these two like prolific serial killers.
And it's very victim based, which we love because it doesn't get into the salacious, like just like shock value stuff. Like we need to know about what happened, but it's all about the victims, which we appreciate.
This one just had me screaming all the way through. This guy kept a video diary, which the cops found after the fact.
Awful.
It is absolutely wild and evil and crazy and awful. So patreon.com/truecrimeobsessed is where you can also find over 450 full ad-free bonus episodes. We're now doing drag bingo. We're now doing cocktail classes. It's a real fun place to like come together, meet other members of the fam.
Yep.
Patreon is where it's at.
That's right. We'll see you there.
Yeah, we'll see you there. We love you.
You don't even have to RSVP to show up.
Yeah, we'll see you there.
Okay, we'll see you there.
All right, bye.
Bye.